Yeah. Well, I think since 1989 we had three assumptions about Europe. The first was that Europe would be a place of perpetual peace. The second was that Europe would be an economic powerhouse with rising economies after the defeat of communism. And the third is that Europe would be a place of democracy. And I think all three of these assumptions are being challenged. We have a war in Ukraine, the first territorial annexation of territory on the European continent since World War II, and a war in eastern Ukraine, and a very aggressive Russia that's building up its military capabilities. We have an ongoing economic crisis, very high unemployment, particularly in the Mediterranean countries, very high youth unemployment, and many people challenging market capitalism. And we see the rise of sort of a neo-socialism across the continent. And third, on democracy. I think in a country like Hungary, we have a prime minister who openly says he wants to turn his country into an illiberal democracy. And there are the rise of all these sorts of illiberal political parties across the continent, whether it's Marine Le Pen in France or the new Italian government, which is the first real populist, anti-systemic government in Europe since the end of World War II. The Polish Law and Justice Party, the rise of the AfD, the first far-right party in the Bundestag since the 1950s. And then on top of this, we now have questions about whether or not America can be relied upon, which we had relied upon America playing a very important role in basically protecting Europe or sort of maintaining the peace and stability of Europe since the end of World War II. And now with Donald Trump, a lot of people are questioning whether that is still the case. I would say yes, unfortunately. I mean, I'm here now in the Czech Republic, where just a couple days ago we saw the Czech Communist Party, which is really the only unreconstructed Soviet-era communist party still in Europe, is now not playing an official role in the government, but is tolerating a government. So that's a pretty sad and tragic step, I would say, here in this country. Well, I think the European Union is actually a great institution. It has problems like every institution. There's clearly a feeling among many Europeans that it is not sufficiently democratic enough. I actually think that tends to be exaggerated. And I think that the greatest era of peace and prosperity that any Europeans have experienced have occurred while they've been members of the European Union. And it troubles me to see, in particular, this part of the world, in the central and eastern part of the world, increasing disenchantment with the European Union. If you look at a country like Poland, which has had the best economy of its entire existence, is the past 25 years. So the years that it was integrating into Europe, we see a very sort of Europhobic government in power. The people are actually very pro-European Union, but there's a very anti-European government. I think that the EU needs to prove to its citizens that it can deliver on particularly important issues. The most important, I think, is the migration crisis. I think that has fueled, that's mainly the reason why I think we're seeing the rise of populist parties across the continent, because there's a perception that the EU is incapable of dealing with migrant waves and securing its borders. So I think the external border of the EU needs to be more secure, and there needs to be a more orderly process of dealing with migration, because this is going to be an issue long into the future. It wasn't just in 2015. It's going to, you're going to be facing this more and more.